Joining us now, senior, and I emphasize senior, in the right way, not the aged way, senior policy advisor for America First Policies, former chairman and president, and now chairman emeritus of the American Jobs Alliance, former transition team member of the Trump administration, former official in the Department of Labor, former this and former that, but now he's senior policy advisor for America First Policies, the number one political action committee fighting for the implementation of President Trump's agenda every single day. And he's with us now. Fresh as a daisy, back from Dallas. Curtis Ellis, good to have you.
Hey, it's great to be here. So you want to make sure this Medicaid expansion that you're covered.
No,
I know what's up with you, John.
No, that is Medicare. And pretty soon I'll be covered by Medicare. I don't need Medicaid. I'm on the Medicare fast track. Actually, I'm a little irritable today, Curtis.
Yeah, why?
I gave up a couple things. I gave up drinking for Lent, so that's, got to deal with that. And then Ann's put me on a diet. This diet.
He gave up food for Lent as well. He gave up
food, no drinking for 3 months.
Dehydrated, desiccated
no drinking.
Skeleton by the time Easter rolls
I
around.
can't even have a beer for 3 months. Nothing. And so that's out. And then she put me on this diet because she says it's better for my heart because I'm turning 60 in 3 weeks. And she says you really need to get some of this weight off. So she has put me on this very healthy, very restrictive diet.
Good for Ann. Good for you. That's great.
It's where
I always think that food and the way we eat and our diet and our the way we live, that's as important as Medicaid or Medicare or Obamacare or what kind of medicine. The key to our health is in our stomach as well as in the hospitals. That's how we're going to solve all these problems.
It's
everybody on a good diet.
You're right, and it's the diet where asparagus is the new lasagna.
Okay, all right. Well,
you just imagine.
Forget about Medicaid expansion. Let's put Virginia on asparagus.
It'll put Virginia. That'll solve a lot of problems.
A lot of problems.
Curtis, you were in Dallas at the tax cut rally with Vice President Trump on Saturday. Tell us about it. How did it go?
Tax cuts to put America first. We had a great event. 750 people filled the room. We had Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick and Congressman Jed Hensarling, chairman of the House Financial Services Committee, and Katrina Pearson moderated this panel discussion talking about the tax cuts and what it means. Look, anytime you got a change in the tax code, there's a lot of questions. And when you have as many changes as this huge tax cut came through, there's a lot of questions. So we're putting on a series of events around the country to answer those questions, help people understand what this is about, how it's working for them, how it's going to help them. And Vice President Pence was on fire. He came down after the panel discussion. He dropped in and spoke for about 20 minutes. And it was a pleasant time was had by all. It was, he did talk about Florida, the shooting, the tragic shootings down there, and we're going to get to the bottom of this and figure out how to make our schools safe and make sure that our most precious resource, our children, are safe and secure. And he talked about the incredible growth that's come about from the tax cuts. So it was, and then later that evening he went over. And I, of course, was out of town by then, but he went over to the Dallas County Republican President's Day dinner.
Yeah, the Reagan dinner.
Raised a whole lot of money for the GOP in Texas. Because I tell you what, Texas, you can't take it for granted. And the Democrats are really trying to turn that state blue. The population is increasing immensely, and it's on track. It's going to almost double in size in the next 20 years. And this is why the Democrats want to make all the illegal immigrants legal, because then they'll be voters, and they're very confident as to who they're going to vote for. So,
Well, listen, you can't take anything for granted nowadays. Let's get to the polling, the public surveys on the tax cut. Public opinion has gone up in favorability rating in 2 months, 15 points. Now a majority of Americans, a clear majority, like the tax cut plan. Also, the generic ballot, according to the McLaughlin poll just out, says that Republicans are now tied in the generic congressional ballot. They were down by 15 a month ago. Now they're tied, all because of the tax cut. What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, look, the tax cut's having a positive effect on people's wallets, on their bank accounts, on their 401k accounts. It's having a positive effect on their paychecks and on the economy as a whole. Business, small business confidence and optimism at a high. Consumer optimism is at a high. So, look, you can believe what the Democrats say, or you can believe your own eyes. And people's eyes are telling them a different story than the gloom and doom that Nancy Pelosi said is going to be the end of the world, Armageddon. It's the worst bill in the history of America. So, you know, it's even worse than the Fugitive Slave Act, according to Nancy Pelosi. But people aren't buying it anymore. But look, the generic ballot is like not that important. It always each race is local, and we cannot expect this to be anything but a bloody fight in November to hold on to the House. People can be optimistic about the economy. They can feel good, and they can like the tax cut and all that. But if they don't come out and vote, we're going to get slaughtered. The Republicans are going to get slaughtered. We need to build a wall in 2018. We need to build an impeachment-proof wall for Donald Trump, and we need to build a Democrat-proof wall in the Senate and the House. Otherwise, the Democrats are going to take over, and they're going to undo everything. They're going to undo these tax cuts. They're going to undo the deregulation, the regulatory reform. They're going to, and make no mistake, they will move to impeach Donald J. Trump. And so we need to build that wall in 2018, and it's the wall that only the voters can build. It's the wall against impeachment and the wall against Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer.
Unbelievable, right? Yeah, that is just the reality of...
You have this idiot, Jerry Nadler, Congressman Nadler.
Right.
He's super liberal from the Upper West Side of Manhattan.
Right.
And he's comparing the Russian Facebook trolls to Pearl Harbor. And he would be in charge of the Judiciary Committee. So first thing they were going to do is impeach Donald Trump. And they purposely put Jerry Nadler in that position, hoping that they're going to take over the House. He's a constitutional law expert. So he would be, and there's only one thing you need a constitutional law expert in charge of the Judiciary Committee for, and that's impeachment proceedings. So that's their plan. And then after they get done with that, they will start regulating the Internet and banning as hate speech or Russian influence any conservative or Christian or evangelical or person of faith communication on the Internet will be labeled as Russian trolls and bots or hate speech, and it will be banned. That's what they're up to. That is the program, clear as day. And there's only one way to stop it, and that's for the voters to come out and build that wall in 2018.
Well, that's going to be it. I mean, and, you know, even if the Republicans hang on to the House, Curtis, the math and the history suggests that it's going to be a very small majority, right? Because the average number of seats lost in the first term of a new president by its party, I think, is like 24. That's like the average, 22 or 23 or something. It's between 20 and 25, just the average.
Yeah, well, there's nothing average about this president and this administration. We know that. And there's nothing is above average, thank goodness. And it's against all norms, which is what we voted for, what we want. You go back to 98, though, when the Republicans were trying to impeach President Clinton, and they lost seats in the House.
Yeah, they got hammered.
And, according to historical trends, the Democrats should have lost seats in the House because the Democrats controlled the White House. But people were so disgusted with the impeachment and and that whole goings on, people said, look, we elected you to do a job and help us and fix the economy. We didn't elect you to impeach the president, no matter how despicable his behavior was.
And look, I remember.
So we could see a repeat of that.
Yep.
Hopefully, we'd see a repeat of that. But we've got to get on the stick. We can't be complacent. And yes, approval of the tax cuts going up, and yes, the economy is looking better. But the Democrats are on fire. The Democrat voters are on fire. Now we got this shooting, and they're going to get like every 18-year-old vote. They're just pulling out all the stops, and we have to mobilize our people. We have to mobilize every single last Trump voter, because remember, a lot of people voted for Donald Trump hadn't voted before, or hadn't voted in a long, long time, and traditionally, people who vote in presidential elections don't necessarily vote in the midterm elections, in the off-year congressional elections. We've got to do something to get those people that came out and voted for President Trump to come out and vote this year, not wait to 2020 to reelect him. They got to come out now.
You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network, trucking the truth across America. We're with Curtis Ellis, and Curtis is a senior policy advisor for America First Policies. Curtis, you're talking about the shooting in Florida and the president saying he's willing to look at some options that might lend itself to making it tougher for kids 18 to get AR-15s and things of that nature. Right now, like you said, young people very motivated to bring a stop to this. What do you think the president will ultimately do?
That's a good question. Look, there is a federal background check system, check system in place. Can it work more efficiently according to the law? I mean, just the laws that are in place. Can they be? You bet. There's a lot of information that's never entered into the system, so that people who are legally prohibited from buying firearms are able to get through. Would that have stopped this whack job in Florida from getting a gun? I don't think so, but that's not the issue. Should 18-year-olds, hormonal teenagers, and science, we're not science deniers, right? We're all in favor of science. Science proves that teenagers think differently than grown adults. Should they be allowed to buy high-power weapons? That's a question that needs to be asked. But here's another thing. It's very interesting. Everybody's all up in arms, and no pun intended. They're all fired up over this shooting, and they now want to ban assault weapons or AR-15s or however you want to call them, these particular weapons that are used. You didn't hear from them a month ago. You didn't hear from these people 3 weeks ago. 17 people were shot in Florida, and everybody's marching on the Capitol. 3 weeks ago, 17 people were shot on the south side of Chicago, the north side of Philadelphia and St. Louis, and south central L.A. Or in Oakland. This many people are shot pretty much every week.
Yeah, it's a little different though, Curtis, when it's 15, 16-year-olds going to high school. Come on. I mean, that, you're talking about adults killing each other in, Oakland bad, Philadelphia bad, Chicago bad, gang wars bad. But it's a little different when you send your son to school, you expect him to get home from basketball practice, and he's lying on the floor with a bullet in his head.
This is another example of the failure of the public school system. We send our kids to school, and the schools act in loco parentis, in place of parents, and we are entrusting them with our children's safety, and there is no excuse when something like this happens. But if you want to talk about guns, certainly guns in school, that's, I guess, a separate issue from the fact that guns are killing people every day in inner city communities, and they're handguns. You take away every assault weapon, maybe it'll make schools safer for this, and I hope it does. But it's not going to solve the problem that's going on in inner cities. Kids going to school getting shot, kids on the way home from school getting shot, kids playing basketball getting shot. That's a problem, too. And we can't forget about it just because the kids are black. And it's happening in a poor community rather than a rich white suburb.
No, you're right.
And the problem there is illegal guns.
Right.
It's about enforcing the laws against gun trafficking, doing something about the straw purchases where women are being exploited and being abused and told, you don't have a criminal record, go in there and buy that gun for me, baby.
Right.
If you love me, you'll buy that gun, and if you don't, I'll slap you around.
Right.
That's what's happening every day, and those laws are not being enforced.
Well, we need to look at that. No question about it. Curtis Ellis, Senior Policy Advisor, America First Policies. Curtis, this just in. CNN Special Counsel Robert Mueller has filed a charge against a lawyer for lying to investigators about his interaction with former Trump campaign aide and Paul Manafort associate Rick Gates in September of 2016. Alex Vanderswan is expected to plead guilty Tuesday. He's also accused of lying about the failure to turn over an email communication to the special counsel's office. He was speaking with investigators about his work with Skardon Apps in 2012 when the firm did work for the Ukrainian Ministry of Justice to prepare a report for the trial of Yulia Tymoshenko. What does this have to do with Russian collusion and the Trump campaign? Do you have any idea?
Nothing. It has nothing to do with it.
Nothing, right?
Nothing. So we've spent countless millions of dollars for Bob Mueller to go on his fishing expedition, and this is what he's come up with, is that Paul Manafort had some dodgy clients in the Ukraine. By the way, John Podesta's brother, Tony Podesta, was representing some of these thieves and kleptocrats in the Ukraine as well. But this has nothing to do with the election, nothing to do. So far, he's come up with nothing to show collusion between the Trump campaign, this whole thing with the Russian Facebook trolls sponsoring anti-Trump rallies and pro-Trump rallies. This has nothing to do with what he's supposed to be investigating, which is, was there some active coordination between the Kremlin and the Trump campaign? There's been none. There's zero evidence of that. But he's got to justify his existence. And look, what that last indictment, this indictment tells us nothing about anything except, as I said, Paul Manafort had some dodgy clients in Eastern Europe 10 years ago. Newsflash, I mean, this guy's reputation, he's always been known as a guy who represents weirdo dictators. That's what Paul Manafort's reputation has been forever. But the previous indictment with these 13 Russian Facebook trolls who will never be indicted, will never come to trial. They're in Russia. Mm-hmm. All that does is provide context. What that really does is provide context for the Christopher Steele dossier. It shows that the Russians were looking to sow chaos and discord, and the Democrats were useful idiots in that campaign. They hired Christopher Steele to channel the Russian disinformation about Donald Trump and channel it to the highest levels of the U.S. government and the U.S. media. The Democrats paid to do that. They were used by the Russians.
Right.
They thought they were using the Russians, but they were being used by Vladimir Putin. Again, Democrats, useful idiots. Goes back to the 1950s when Stalin and the Soviet spies were infiltrating the highest levels of the U.S. government, and the Democrats played right along with it.
Spot on. Curtis Ellis, as always, Senior Policy Advisor for America First Policies. Curtis, it's great to have you with us. By the way, Curtis, you probably didn't know this, but this segment is brought to you by America First Policies. You know, we have crumbling roads and collapsing bridges, train derailments. We have a D+ grade from the American Society of Civil Engineers for projects that require an environmental review. An approval process often stretches beyond 7 years. Transportation deaths and injuries on the rise. It's clear our transportation infrastructure cannot withstand the demands of 21st century American families and commuters, putting our lives, safety, and livelihoods at risk. Now, President Trump wants to rebuild our infrastructure, break down burdensome regulatory barriers, streamline the slow and costly permitting process and create millions of jobs in the process, maximizing the value of taxpayer dollars to put your safety and quality of life first. Call Congress today at 202-224-3121, 202-224-3121, and tell them to support President Trump's plan to rebuild America's infrastructure, paid for by American First Policies, Inc. Curtis, thanks for being with us, man.
Yay. Thank you.